Children under 12, stay behind. It was written into an order in 1731. It hit 20,000 families in the Salzburg mountains. They left their houses, their farms, and their kids behind, walked out into winter, and arrived in faraway towns as strangers. So that's what people named them, after their catastrophe. Disaster after disaster got frozen into German surnames, and millions of Americans carry them today with no idea. It happened after plagues, after wars, after famines. These are 15 German surnames that prove your ancestors survived something terrible. Number 1 is the most ordinary one of all. You might carry it yourself. Number 15 starts with the loudest word in the German language. Between 1618 and 1648, one war rolled across Central Europe for 30 years. By the end, roughly a third of Germany's population was gone, and some regions in the southwest had lost more than half. And through all of it, real families carried this as their legal surname: Krieg, the German word for war. Now the honest part. In Old German, the word first meant quarrel. So most Krieg families probably got the name generations earlier, from a man whose temper the whole village knew. But imagine signing that name in a parish register in the 1630s, in a decade when the register held more burials than baptisms. The family that signed war and kept signing it. In America, the name survives as Krieg and Krieg. If it's yours, your family outlived the word itself. The next name was given to children who never learned their real one. Number 14 was written down for the first time on a church step. In famine years, a mother who could not feed her child sometimes carried the baby into town at night and left it where someone would find it at dawn. The church door, the market square, the doorstep of a house with bread in it. When the town clerk recorded the child, there was no father to name it after, and no trade to name it for. So the clerk wrote down what the child was: Findling, the found one. It is one of the few surnames on earth that records the very first day of a life, and that day was a rescue. Every Findling in an American phone book descends from a child that nobody claimed and somebody saved. The next name sounds like pure destruction, and you have definitely met it. Number 13, smells like smoke. In old German land records, a brand was a piece of ground cleared by fire, and sometimes a piece of ground destroyed by it. The burned farm, the homestead that had to rise out of its own ashes. The family working that scorched land took its name from it: Brandt. Now many Brandts descend from something prouder, because Brand was also the short form of Hildebrand, an ancient warrior name. So this name splits in two. In some family trees, there is a sword at the root. In others, there is a fire, and a family that rebuilt on top of the ash. Quick pause, because this name is exactly why this channel exists. Whether your surname is on this list or not, this is what we do here. Trace names through church books, ship manifests, and records. Nobody opens anymore. If you want yours decoded someday, subscribe. It costs nothing, and it tells us to keep digging. Back to the countdown, and to a name that points east. Number 12 marks a border that would not stop burning. For nearly 200 years, the wars between the Habsburg Empire and the Ottoman Empire churned through the Kingdom of Hungary, and ahead of every campaign season, people moved west. When a family from that frontier arrived in a German town, nobody asked for their whole story. They got tagged with where they came from: Unger, the Hungarian. To be fair, Some Ungers were simply traders working the Hungary road. But for many families, the name is an arrival stamp, pressed on by the neighbors, marking the day someone walked in from the war country and decided to stay. In America, it lives on as Unger and Ungar. Next up, the only name on this list that marks someone who walked toward the disaster. Number 11 is a name for going the wrong direction on purpose. After 1648, parts of southwestern Germany were so empty that rulers sent out open invitations. Come, take over a dead man's farm, pay no taxes for years. And down from the mountains came families who said yes. They moved into the ruined Palatinate and into Württemberg, took over silent farmhouses, and restarted villages that had almost flickered out. The locals named the newcomers the obvious way: Schweizer, the Swiss. In America, you will meet the name as Schweitzer and Switzer, and it hides inside many Amish and Mennonite family trees. If it's yours, your family looked at a devastated country and saw a beginning. And the next entry is the story this whole video opened with. Number 10 is the name from the opening. In 1731, the order came down in the Salzburg mountains: renounce your faith or leave. The poorest got 8 days. Children under 12 were to stay behind. And through that winter and the following year, more than 20,000 people walked north, in columns of roughly 800 at a time. Prussia took most of them in, a kingdom that had just lost a third of its own people to plague and had thousands of empty farms waiting. In 1734, one group of 300 sailed on to the American South and founded a town in Georgia they named Ebenezer. Their descendants still gather there today. And in every town along the way, the exiles were called the same thing: Salzburger. The one from Salzburg. The catastrophe became the family name, exactly as promised. And hold on to number 1, because when those columns reached Prussia's emptied villages, many of those families became number 1. You will see what I mean at the end. Number 9 is 1,000 years of not belonging, pressed into one syllable. Deep inside Eastern Germany lived a Slavic people, the Wends, farming their own villages, speaking their own language, and being reminded constantly that they were guests in their own home. The name their German neighbors gave them followed them everywhere: Wend. The Wend. And in 1854, around 500 of them made the most Wendish decision in history. They left together on a ship called the Ben Nevis, bound for Texas. Cholera broke out on board, and dozens died at sea. The survivors founded a town called Surnames, Texas, where Wendish heritage is celebrated to this day. If your name is Wendt or Wende, your family survived 1,000 years as strangers at home. Some of them survived the ship as well. Number 8 marks a border crossed under pressure. Germany's eastern edge was a revolving door for centuries. Wars, partitions, famines, and work that was always somewhere other than home. When a man arrived from the east, the village summed up his entire story in one word: Pole. The Pole. Now in the German north, the name can also come from a harmless old word for a pond, so not every Pole family fled anything. But across the eastern regions, this name usually marks a family that packed up, crossed a line on the map, and started from zero among people who mispronounced everything about them. In America, the name appears as Pole and Paul, and the next name records one of the largest religious escapes in European history. Number 7 was created in a single afternoon. In 1620, a battle on a hill outside Prague crushed the Protestant cause in Bohemia, and the order that followed is one you have heard before in this video: convert or go. Over the following decades, tens of thousands of Bohemian families crossed the mountains into Saxony and beyond. Border villages doubled in size, and every arriving family got tagged with the same word: Bohem, the Bohemian. In America, the name became Bohem and Bem, and in some families, it softened all the way into Beam. Sound familiar? If it's on your mailbox, your family likely chose exile over a forced signature, a full century before the Salzburgers made the same choice. And the next name comes from the land that took the Salzburgers in. Number 6 comes from a land that was a graveyard before it was a refuge. Between 1709 and 1711, plague swept through East Prussia and killed roughly a third of its people. Whole districts went quiet. That emptiness is the reason Prussia could throw its doors open to the Salzburg exiles 20 years later. And when a family from that eastern kingdom turned up elsewhere in the German lands, they were named for it: Preuss, the Prussian. It's a name that only exists where it stood out. It was given to arrivals, not to locals, which means somewhere behind most Preuss families is a departure from the plague land, from the garrison towns, from the eastern edge of everything. In America, it lives on as Preuss and Preuss. And now, the final 5, starting with a name that should not exist. Number 5 is a word you were never supposed to inherit. In 1315, the rain across Europe would not stop. The harvests drowned, and the years that followed became known as the Great Famine. In 1709, a winter hit so hard that birds fell from the sky, and wine froze in the cellars, and hunger followed it into every valley. Somewhere in those centuries, families ended up carrying the starkest name German has to offer: hunger. Yes, it is real, and it is in American phone books right now. The scholars will tell you it often began as a nickname for the gaunt man, or for the miser who ate like famine was always coming. But nicknames come from somewhere. In the centuries this name was born, the word was never abstract. A family named Hunger is a message from a time when surviving was the entire inheritance. Number 4 belonged to the man everyone needed and no one would touch. When plague entered a town, one job mattered more than the priest and the physician combined, and it paid accordingly: digging. Someone had to bury the town. The man who did it took his name from his shovel: Graber. The digger. Most Graber families, in fairness, dug wells and ditches or engraved metal. But the gravedigger carried the same mark we met in our last video with the executioner Franz Schmidt: essential, paid, and shunned. The neighbor nobody drank with. In America, the name lives on as Graber, common in Amish and Mennonite communities with Swiss roots. If it's in your family, someone in your line once did the work nobody else could stomach and walked away from it alive. The next name is what that work left behind. Number 3 is the name of the silence afterwards. German historians have a technical term for a village that died: a Wüstung. After the plague reached the German lands in 1349, and again after the Great Wars, thousands of villages were simply abandoned. Researchers still find them today: field lines visible from the air, church foundations under the forest floor. The land itself was described with one word: West, deserted, waste, and a family that stayed at the edge of that emptiness or came back to farm it picked the word up as a name: West. Sometimes, yes, it was just a nickname for the wild and unkempt man, but in region after region, It is the map speaking, the family from the deserted place. In America, you will find it as West and West, a name that means your people farmed the silence and outlasted it. Number 2 is the gentlest name on this list, and it comes from the hardest arithmetic in history. For most of the centuries we have crossed in this countdown, parents expected to bury some of their children. Grief was not an event, it was the climate. And in that climate, German families sometimes gave a person a name that was not a job, not a place, and not a father. It was what that person meant to the people around them. Trust, consolation, comfort. The records cannot tell us each story. A child born after a loss, a neighbor who sat with the grieving. We usually cannot know which, but the name proves the need, because nobody gets called comfort in comfortable times. If you carry trust, someone in your family was once the reason someone else kept going. And that leaves one name, the most ordinary one of all. Number 1 is so common that you have stopped seeing it. It is on mailboxes, on office doors, in your phone contacts. And here is what it actually records. When plague or war emptied a village, the fields did not stay empty. Sooner or later, a stranger arrived, took over a dead man's farm, repaired a dead man's roof, and married into whatever family was left. The village knew exactly one thing about him, so that one thing became his name, the new man, Neumann. Which means this name was never ordinary. Every single Neumann marks a moment when a community had a hole torn in it, and somebody stepped into that hole and started over. It happened after 1350. It happened after 1648. It happened after 1732, when the Salzburg exiles walked into Prussia's emptied villages and became, quite literally, the new people. That is what I meant earlier. In America, the name stepped off the ship and often became Newman. Millions carry it. If you are one of them, your name is not a trade and not a father. It is an arrival. The exact moment your family became the future of a place that almost had none. 15 names, a war, a foundling, a fire, a wave of exiles, a plague land, a famine, a digger, a dead village, a consolation, and a new man. None of them were chosen. All of them were survived. So tell us in the comments where you are listening from and which surname you would like decoded next. Any name, any origin. It does not have to be German, and it does not have to be your own. We read every one, and the next videos on this channel are being built from that comment section right now. And if you want to see where names like these ended up, subscribe, because next time we flip this story on its head, the German surnames behind America's richest families. Some of the names that crawled out of these ruins went on to build empires. Your name did not just survive. It might have been getting ready. You were named by history.